Being able to detect things in low abundance so that we can detect things early, but it really is about accuracy. And so that's what VeraBIND is really supposed to represent.
Crazy.
John Forrest, CEO and co-founder of Veravas. Thanks for joining me today.
It's good to be with you, Logan.
So you've got, there's a lot of companies in health tech. They have sort of typical health techie names. I like the name Veravas. It's got a punchy meaning to it. I know it's related to truth in some way. So tell me where the name comes from and how it relates to what you're building, and then we'll kind of unwind the actual product.
Well, it's a great question, and we're pretty proud of the name. We really do like it. Where it comes from is Latin. Vera, as you already have assumed, it means truth. And vas is kind of vessel or vase, or in this case, a collection tube. And so, the purpose of Veravas when we got started was really to have accurate testing, being able to detect things in low abundance so that we can detect things early, but it really is about accuracy. And so that's what VeraBIND is really supposed to represent.
Okay, so blood testing, truth in the vessel, truth in the blood testing. We'll get to all of that. Let's back it up a little bit. Have you always been in diagnostic testing? What's been your sort of entrepreneurial journey in a couple minutes?
Well, I come from a military family. I don't know. I've always had a strong sense of purpose and wanting to accomplish things. And so after my father retired, he was an entrepreneur, so I became an entrepreneur, and I've been involved in a number of different startups.
What did he do, out of curiosity?
He was a chief master sergeant in the Air Force, and he was in charge of our nuclear response in B-52s. So he was making sure that he managed that. Chief Master Sergeant is no joke. And so it was like, done, get things done. Yeah. So
at home as well as in the B-52s is what you're saying.
Oh, it was,
he ran a tight ship.
There was no distinction.
Okay.
So no, really in my career, it's been about startups, bleeding edge technology, and I've done a number of different kinds of companies, all in healthcare, starting out with electronic medical records, and then really being in diagnostics. This is the first diagnostic company that I've been involved with. I've done some pharmacy solutions with a chemotherapy robot, which we had a nice exit, but this is my first diagnostic company. I've learned a lot, and I'm glad that I chose this particular area to be in because there's so much that needs to be done. There's a lot, in diagnostics. There hasn't been, before COVID, there wasn't a whole lot of innovation that really was going on in diagnostics. And all you had, it was the big players of LabCorp and Quest, and they kind of dominated the space, but we didn't see a whole lot of changes. And also at the time, 7 years ago when we started, there was a company that a lot of people have heard about, Theranos, that started this company on a lie. But they were successful. They became a $9 billion valuation on a lie.
Financially successful.
Financially,
in terms of raising funds.
Successful. Right. But I would say that what that showed me was that the market was disruptible, that the market wanted to have a solution to find an answer to these problems. And I wanted to, it's really a shame what happened. And I felt like it was important for us to focus on accuracy, improve diagnostics so that for early detection, and hopefully to get faith and confidence back into diagnostics. And you do that by having the most accurate tests and leading the industry by having the best tests on the market.
Okay, let me unpack that a little bit, because you said that you noticed there was an appetite for some disruption, some innovation. We need to improve accuracy. Most people don't think about LabCorp and Quest as having a problem of accuracy. They just think, oh, I just got to go in. It's very utilitarian. I just got to give some blood, get some results. They don't think about what's happening. So pull back the curtain a little bit for us in terms of the nascent problems that exist in lab technology that need to be addressed.
Well,
apparently there are accuracy problems.
There are accuracy problems. When you think about it, when you're testing something in blood or saliva or whatever the sample type is, it's a very complicated matrix. There are a lot of things going on in a blood sample that can interfere with a diagnostic test. So what our technology does is instead of trying to block some of these interferences and substances that can provide a false result, whether it's a false positive or a false negative, or even a false normal. You need to first clean the sample. And this is our patented technology that really, we think, can revolutionize laboratory medicine, because what our nano bead technology does is it first will capture all those substances that can prevent us from seeing what's in the sample and capturing those biomarkers. And so by first capturing those interferences, removing them out of the sample, now you have a clean sample. Now we're able to capture these biomarkers that may be in low abundance. We use our beads again to capture those. We remove those from the sample. And what you have remaining is concentrated biomarkers in buffer or water. I was just going to say, with that, if that's all you have present, it's kind of hard to get it wrong.
Interesting.
So that sample transformation is kind of like junk in, junk out. If you have quality in, you have quality out. By cleaning the sample and then capturing and enriching the biomarkers of interest, those are things that will make a difference in diagnostic testing, and we've certainly done that in neurodegenerative testing that we have.
I'm sure folks in the lab testing world know all about this, but are you able to dumb down for me how big of a problem dirty samples, occluded samples are? How big of a problem false positives and false negatives are? Because the average consumer might not be thinking about those numbers and they understand air purification in relationship to the toxins in the air or the dust in the air. They think about water purification in terms of the minerals and things that are in the water. So help me understand the current state and how many issues there are in the samples that have to be fixed.
I'll try to provide you with an example. I mean, we have false positives and false negatives all the time, but we just assume that everything is correct. I'll give you a really good example, and that's biotin. Biotin is a supplement that we take. It's good for hair, skin, and nails. And biotin is typically or very commonly used in about 85% of diagnostic tests. But if I take supplements of biotin and I have that in my system and in my blood, right, and I get a blood sample and I have a bunch of biotin in my sample, because the diagnostic tests use biotin in their in that technology, that high level of biotin can throw a test off. That's just one example, but there's lots of other examples that I can look at. For example, heterophilic interferences. If I, mouse, our bodies are very resilient. We have antibodies against mice. And because we may be exposed to them in some way. Well, a lot of diagnostic tests use, they insert the toxin into the mice develops antibodies. We use those antibodies in the diagnostic tests to measure whatever we're trying to detect. But if you have been exposed to mice, you have these antibodies, and these antibodies could potentially interfere with that test.
Okay.
And so there are a lot of things that, we remove about 15 different things, but another big one is autoantibodies.
Okay.
If I have, even for Alzheimer's, right? So Alzheimer's, you have a misfolded protein that's in the brain. It does get into the blood. Well, it's not supposed to be in the blood. Well, and what your body does is it develops antibodies against that protein, and it cleans it up. Well, if you have these autoantibodies that are going after the target that you want to measure, it can throw off a test.
Yeah.
And if I'm a LabCorp or Quest, and it's nothing against them, but they're not very close to what's going on with the clinical picture of the patient, because they are remote. I'm in a clinic environment or a hospital environment, and I don't necessarily I can't really see the whole clinical picture. All they're doing is providing a result, and it is sometimes challenging to see those problematic testing just because of the nature of what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So the nuts and bolts of this make a ton of sense. We understand the idea of purifying a sample, getting better results, fewer false positives, fewer false negatives. Makes sense. Let's talk about the business itself. You're a startup. My mind immediately goes to the idea that it seems like you're coming up against some pretty big enterprise and incumbent players. What's that like, and what's your go-to-market strategy?
Well, yes, certainly there are a lot of large companies that are out there. Everybody's trying to solve this problem. It wasn't too long ago that the only way to diagnose Alzheimer's was an autopsy. So this is a new and developing marketplace that's available, and we just recently had some success in the market with blood-based biomarkers, looking at measuring these proteins and for Alzheimer's. Well, it is a challenge because a lot of these big companies, will have a test and they'll bring it to market. But those tests aren't very accurate. There's a 20% gray zone that's out there that are, what I mean by gray zone is that there's an indeterminable zone of, if your result comes in this zone, well, you really can't use the blood test because you might have to reflex to an amyloid PET scan. Even if you're successful at being 90% accurate of 80%, you're really only about 70-something% ability to find it. What we are going to do differently, and what our test does, because of our purification technology, we purify this misfolded protein, and then we can see if it's physiologically active. It's very unique and different, and this is why we're going to be successful with this, because when we purify that protein and we look and see if it's binding to a normal protein, which is the hallmark of disease. If that binding event happens, then you have a tauopathy, and we know that leads to neurodegeneration. That enables us to detect the Alzheimer's prior to tau tangles, in the earliest form of seeding when it begins in the brain, and that early detection pre-symptomatically will make a difference, because now we can test a population. We don't have to wait for symptoms, which may be kind of late in the process because you're already having a lot of neurodegeneration before that problem starts to manifest. We can detect it early, and as you know, when you detect it early, you have a better chance of having a good outcome.
What I hear you saying, so I've interviewed a lot of folks who are in the Alzheimer's Moonshot, a lot of blood-based biomarkers. What I hear you saying is this is complementary to a lot of other approaches because you're improving any other approach. There's a piece of this that could be complementary. Are you also developing your own test in the market, or are you a platform, a tool for other tests, or both?
It's both. Do have a platform that we can make other tests better. But we are a platform that we developed to make original tests, our own tests better. All right. And so the first test for tau pathology is revolutionary. It's not, we don't look at it as a competition to the p-tau 217 test that's out, because it's really, those tests are correlating to amyloid plaques.
Okay.
Plaques don't necessarily lead to Alzheimer's disease, but tau pathology does. And so that's very, very different. And we don't view these blood tests as competitors. We actually are an alternative and complementary to a tau PET scan. Actually, tau PET is the gold standard, but they're very, very expensive. They're very inaccessible. Our test is 94% correlative to a tau PET scan. So we could be a screen to justify the expense of a tau PET, but just in general, being able to detect if you have this early seeding event, it's going on, we can detect it long before symptoms. And that is the difference that we're going to make. Now, what's really interesting too, Logan, is that we have a new test that we're going to be introducing very soon for amyloid pathology. And it will be the most accurate test for amyloid pathology. And it correlates to amyloid PET. So we'll have two blood-based biomarkers for amyloid and for tau. And then what's really exciting is later this year, we're going to do this in saliva.
Okay. And what are the advantages of saliva?
Well, saliva is an easy to use or easy to collect sample type. So now we
do it at home, do it yourself.
Do it at home, do it yourself. You don't have to have a blood draw. A lot of elderly patients, they have, their blood veins may not be good for collecting blood. It may be hard to find the vein. It's painful. They get poked all the time for various other things. Yeah. And a good swish and spit sample type makes it really easy for them, to collect that sample. And is also very good for ongoing monitoring as well. So that easy and accessible sample type, we think, is going to be a real game changer.
Yeah. Let me switch gears for a second here. Like I said, I've talked to a lot of folks who are in the Alzheimer's field, and I often ask them about early detection, because even though you just said, hey, earlier you catch it, the better, you still have a huge swath of the world who actually doesn't want to know earlier. They're too afraid. They don't actually believe there's anything they can do. And so there's a lot that has to happen in terms of the stigma of Alzheimer's. How do you sort of think about that? And what would you even tell a friend or relative about learning about their chances of Alzheimer's early, and why that would be a truly good thing?
Well, just a recent study that came out that over age 55, about 43% of patients will go on to develop dementia. That's a huge percentage, and we have a very big and growing older population. And so it's.
Do you agree with my premise that most of those people today would say, I don't want to know what's coming?
I disagree. I'll tell you why. I mean, the Alzheimer's Association did a study, and they found that 78% of patients would want to know if they could do something about it.
If they
That's the issue. That's the issue that a lot of people are questioning. And yes, there are not a lot of good therapeutics that are out there. There are some that have been introduced, and it's great to have some tools in the toolbox. But really, there's some promising efforts. You look at the finger study that's going on. For example, is showing that just lifestyle changes, just eating right, exercise,
so powerful.
Muscle. There are lots of different protocols that are out there, but just healthy living can potentially have an impact. And it's kind of like if I'm aware, if I have this awareness, if I know that, okay, I've got it going on. And by the way, our tests are not showing risk. Our tests are showing you already have it.
Okay.
It is coming. You need to do something about it.
Wow.
And I think it's a wake-up call that will say, hey, you have this pathology going on in the brain, and now is the time to do something about it. And I think if people understand that they, in fact, are empowered to do something, they will.
There's an interesting correlation here, I think, with pre-diabetes. The understanding that something could be coming, and we have this population of 100 million people with pre-diabetes in the United States, and yet there is still this great education campaign that has to take place. I mean, you bring up the finger study. There's so much that can be done, but it's interesting to think about the sort of hand in glove innovation we need between the therapies and the education.
Yeah, you think about diabetes and you think about, a risk for heart disease. Some good examples. Everybody has may have high triglycerides or have type 2 diabetes, and they don't really associate it too much with, everybody has it. It's just a risk factor.
Yeah,
I think if you're dealing with cancer or you're dealing with Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. Now it matters.
Yeah.
I have to do something. And in fact, my mother has Alzheimer's, so it's very personal, to me. And, and I think about, what impact that it could have, for me. I want to know if I have it, early, because there are some hereditary implications. But if I'd much rather have a cancer than I would Alzheimer's, because if I have cancer, I can at least, I've got a plan. It's either going to work or it's not. I can be more focused. But if I have Alzheimer's and the impact that you have to your family, not remembering names, your family may not be able to remember you. You could be a burden. There's so many implications to having Alzheimer's that, I think is really super important for us. And it's our mission. If we can detect it early, we can prevent all that pain and all that effort, because now if we can detect it early, and when patients can do the most good, then we can truly make a difference. And that's why we started the company. We really wanted to make a difference in a big space. Mm-hmm. Our technology can be applied to other types of testing, not just for neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and other things, but for cancer. We have a partnership that we're already doing to use our technology for cancer. But if we can detect early, and we can do it in a sample type that makes it easily accessible, we can make a difference. And that's truly why we come to work every day. And every day that our test is not being used, it's a day missed, because we need to get it out there. And that's our mission right now, because we have just started commercializing our tau pathology test. And now is the time that you can find out if you have this going on in the brain early, so you can do something about it. It's not as scary as you might think, because it's just finding out if you need to do something and take action or not.
Yeah. You referenced the finger study, and I've seen the numbers. They are incredible how much you can affect that long-term mental health, brain health, through basic nutrition, activity, social connection. It's amazing. I mean, I feel like it's like 20, 30% slowing, or it's like the numbers are really significant.
It's actually 43% of cases can be prevented.
That's crazy.
By changing your behavior. But you know what? I need an alarm clock. I need something to say, hey, a siren, I've got this. I've got to do something. Yep. And that's what we hope to provide, is an early warning so that you can do something.
And that's why it's so important what you said earlier, that you are actually detecting pathology, actual pathology, and not the predilection towards a disease, the directional accuracy, but actually what's happening in the sample.
I'd like to dive into that just for a second, because that's really, really important. Other diagnostic tests are looking for a level of something, a level of p-tau or what have you. Well, it's good to know that, but what happens is that I might then be susceptible to like ethnic variances or comorbidities. If I have renal disease, I might have a higher number than if I don't. And so those numbers, you have to have almost an algorithm to see what they all mean based on the different factors. What our test is measuring is that misfolded protein binding to the normal protein, which is the seeding event that takes place in tau pathology. It's a yes/no answer. It's either it does or it doesn't, and those things aren't. We believe is not an issue with our test. We need to do lots more studies to prove that it's not going to have any impact, but we believe that it won't. And by having a yes/no answer, that also helps providers in knowing do they have this going on in the brain or do they not? And so hopefully it's an easier way to aid in diagnosing.
I mean, the more I hear you talk about this, the more I'm seeing that it's not just about a few more percentage points of accuracy. It's about a person taking action or not taking action. Because if I believe I'm in a gray zone, there's so much in me that's pushing back against taking action that I'm going to take the path of least resistance. And I'm going to tell myself I'm in a gray zone. So to get over the hump in terms of the yes/no answer is, in my mind, I'm thinking it's action versus no action in many ways.
It makes it a more black and white.
Yeah.
Yes, it's yes or no.
Well, John, this is very exciting. There's a lot more you could have laid out for us, I know. And what's so cool about this is that purifying samples applies to basically every part of diagnostics. Like, it sounds like these nanobeads and all this stuff you're doing is really a platform that has these extensive implications. And so it's going to be exciting to see where that goes. But obviously starting in Alzheimer's is amazing. And I hope that soon I'll have a blood panel that I can take that will sort of keep me abreast of how my brain is doing. And so,
well, Logan, you can test today.
Really?
It's
okay.
available today. Talk to your physician. They can sign up, on our website. If you want to take our test, that's available today. And I would encourage everyone to talk to their physician, sign up, and we can get that answer for you and your loved ones.
So if somebody's watching this on YouTube,
whether or not you have this early seeding event.
Yeah. So if someone's listening to this or watching it on YouTube, they tell their primary care physician to go to your website, Veravas.
Veravas.com. And sign up. The physicians need to sign up because we want to make sure that physicians are ordering this test. It's not a consumer test.
Yeah.
Because we want if it's positive, we want to make sure that patients are going to have a path to be taken care of. Because this is not just a simple cholesterol test. This is Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
this is serious.
Yeah.
And we're taking a serious approach to this. We think we have a better method. The results are showing really, really good correlation to tau PET and the other test for amyloid PET. And we're super excited about what we're doing, and hopefully we're going to make a difference, not just now, but long into the future.
Well, I appreciate you, John. Knowledge can be intimidating, but it's also power. It's also power, and so I do want that knowledge in my back pocket. I appreciate what you're doing. You're pushing on something that could really change healthcare, and that is really special. So, thanks for explaining it to me today.
Thanks very much, Logan. Good to be with you.
All right, be well.
Now, before we get into that, a quick word about this show, in case you're new around here. At Startup Health, we believe in broadcasting the stories of Health Moonshot progress, the stories of the most forward-thinking entrepreneurs in health. If you want more of this good news about healthcare's problem solvers, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, hit that notification button, and follow us on social media at Startup Health.